We'll go around the table here and introduce ourselves.
Dean Benjamin, Alderman.
Joe Eichstead, City Engineer.
Paul Mahler, Public Works Superintendent.
Matt Zacher, Alderman.
We got Dean Bemke in the back, alderperson, and I'm Ryan Austin. I'm the chairperson of the Public Works Committee. So that's item number 1. Number 2, review traffic control study report for the intersection of Chestnut Street and 12th Street South. Mr. Eichstead.
Okay, quick run through our report again. Findings from the engineering study. Some of the things that we looked at.
Just hang on a second, Tyler.
Hey Sherry, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Eichstead.
So back to the engineering report for 12th and Chestnut Street. We took a look at parking along adjacent to the intersection. Took a look at the existing traffic control at the intersection as well. Currently there's a two-way stop on 12th Street. Chestnut Street is through. Took a look at the accident history. There were 8 accidents since 2016, 3 of which were identified that may be correctable or reduced effects due to addition of stop signs. We also did in-person observations during while school was in session to see if there were pedestrians, school kids crossing at that location or not. Did traffic counts. There's about 2.5 times more traffic on Chestnut Street than on 12th Street. So typically if we were looking at doing an all-way type stop situation, we'd be looking at, they're typically deployed when you have balanced traffic on all 4 legs of the intersection. So there's more detail here in the report, but ultimately the recommendation, at least from engineering perspective, is to maintain two-way traffic control with the stop signs that are out there. And then one of the criteria that we use is the city's adopted the manual of uniform traffic control devices, which lays out criteria on which to base certain decisions. And so there's a matrix that's included in the packet that reflects the criteria that's in the manual. And so for stop signs, there's 3 items, 3 of 5 that meet the criteria for a two-way stop. Based on the matrix and the procedure and policy that we use, you need at least 2 in a particular traffic control category. And so there's only 1 that falls in with the all-way stop sign condition. But certainly if there's additional information, things that weren't taken into account in the study, that would be important information to review.
Thank you. Any questions or comments by committee?
We're looking to vote on this and pass it onto city council
Correct.
as to what we want to do here.
I thought that we were gonna have some members of the public speak on this.
They will, yeah. I believe we got some folks here that want to speak.
I don't know
This?
I don't know if they showed up tonight or not.
Okay,
I'm guessing not, but they are aware of it, so.
Okay. Jay, do you want to speak
Yeah,
for?
I just have a couple things. First of all, this problem goes back to 2017, so it's not new. Not only, I did read through your report, Joe, but there's times a day with traffic and noise there are other issues. I know a stop sign isn't gonna cure that, but again, this has been an issue since 2017. I've had two families complain. One is on the corner of 12th and Chestnut. One is on the corner of 15th and Chestnut. But there's obviously some ongoing issues up there, and I think we need to look at how we're gonna address them. If it's not a stop sign, what else can we do up there? So,
What are the issues?
well, noise is one. Time of day, it's traffic coming from the other side of 16th Street. It's pretty loud. The one house is right on the corner and said sometimes it's so loud it rattles the windows in the house, and that's in the evening. And speed obviously is one of them, so I think that was addressed in your study, correct, Joe?
Yeah, so the use of stop signs for speed control is generally prohibited, I guess, in a sense. It's not a useful tool to use. And the reason being is that typically what they find is, certainly people will slow down and stop at the intersection, but then they'll speed up to make up time on either side of the intersection. So you actually end up with a net increase in speed, typically, what they find.
So I guess just an observation from these two families is they think that what's happening is that they're using this to cut across from Highway 54 to 8th Street. And that's how they've seen the traffic slowly increase over the years. And I guess my question is if there is another stop sign, would that keep the traffic where we want it on Highway 54?
Is it truck traffic?
It's not truck, it doesn't say, no mention of trucks. No, not heavy traffic, just the time of day, the volume, the speed.
Is it a straight shot from 54 to 8th Street, or is there a
There's
stop?
one stop sign,
One stop sign.
16th in between.
So maybe if Chief could address this a little bit, I would appreciate it.
I'm not exactly sure what, I've spoken to Alderman Bemke several times about this stretch of road. Yes, of course, people are, and I'm firmly committed, I believe that they are using it as a cut through from 8th to 54 and vice versa. And when they're in peak times, they are speeding. We've had the traffic camera out there, our mobile trailer, and speeds are relative. I mean, to be honest with you, we've all stood in our front yard and saw that car drive by and go, "Hey, slow down, pal," kind of thing. Whereas it's your impression of the people speeding. But every time that we do a speed survey with our trailer, the most recent one we did, the average speed out of almost 8,000 vehicles was 26 miles an hour. So that is, 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. We've used these, before to show people that, yeah, there are cars that are speeding, but not everybody's speeding. Am I against the stop sign at 12th? No, I wouldn't mind seeing a stop sign there because I think it would slow some folks down, in my opinion. I know that some will speed up again, but especially with it being near the school, just in the interest of public safety, I think a stop sign would help. And that's my opinion, and for what it's worth.
Is that school still running and they got
Yes.
kids and stuff?
Yes, the Lutheran school, I believe it is.
Catholic. It's
Catholic,
It's
yeah.
3 through 6 though.
Okay, so real.
Yeah.
So I guess in my mind, the main thing is I would hate to have this conversation and then not do it and then have something happen that we would all regret.
Yes.
And, I know it's tricky according to the studies and, how the studies work, but certainly if it's being brought to our attention and it's there, how much does it cost to put a stop sign up? I mean, the money's not necessarily an issue, right?
No, $300 for 2 of them.
And then we just have the public, the training aspect of teaching the public that there's a stop sign there now. Whereas we did it, was it 4 mile or 2 mile?
2 mile. Yeah.
Where we put those in, because I'm so happy we put those in, by the way. But then you're gonna have to train folks that are used to going to, there's a stop sign now, so there's gonna be a learning curve for most of the drivers. So
So you gotta put a sign up that says.
you got to put a sign up to put a sign up.
Now it's 600.
With a couple of flags and but yeah. Again, I'm not against it. I think it might be a good thing. When I think of the school and people, not everyone's speeding, but there are enough that are.
Do we think there's any validity to if we add another stop sign at this intersection that it may deter some traffic trying to use it as a cutover from 54 to 8th Street.
I guess it all depends on how much traffic we're talking about and where they're going. I mean, if their destination, if that's the shortest route and it's still faster for them to get there.
Yeah, I don't think it'll deter people because everybody has their shortcuts. You know,
Chestnut Street and 12th Street, they're both collector streets, so I mean, they're meant to carry more traffic than a local street, so as far as residential properties next to those, there's gonna be more traffic and maybe it's increased over the years, but I guess that's what would be expected.
Question, Joe, would it make any sense to try a stop sign there, see what the impact is, and if it doesn't work? I mean, is that something, or is that not a good practice? I mean, now we finally got people used to stopping and we pull it.
Yeah, I mean, you do run a little bit of a risk there, I guess, if people are creatures of habit, but long-term risk, I mean, I don't know that there's a long-term risk.
I know Mr. Bimke brought up noise. Adding a stop sign there, to me, wouldn't that create a little more noise?
Typically, that would actually
The stop
generate.
sign's not gonna fix that.
the noise that you've talked to me about isn't exactly a speed or stop sign issue. It's more of like motorcycles without pipes and stuff like that. That's a whole other ball.
I think it would be more, stopping and the engine brrr,
Right,
or
exactly.
the squeaky brakes.
Vehicles approaching an intersection and leaving the intersection, there will be more noise there than what they see today.
The noise complaint came from farther up on 15th. There was no noise complaints about 12. So I just think that there's something that has to be, this goes back again to 2017, so it's not a brand new problem. The issues aren't going away, they're not getting any better. If a stop sign isn't the solution, then what is?
Can I speak?
Go ahead, Jerry.
I know all your points are valid, and I was kind of thinking the same thing. The only thing I keep coming back is, we rely on the experts, which is Joe Ike said, the policy. We need to follow the policy, because if we have two people here wanting a stop sign here, two people here that want a stop sign here, I mean, now we don't have uniform code at all. And that gets risky, and the city has done that in the past, as people have contacted me and said, we used to paint the curb here, I want that done, and then I contact engineering, we don't do that anymore. And I just think we need to kind of stick by code. And I mean, you're not gonna eliminate traffic on one street because it goes from 54 to 8th Street, they're gonna travel that. I mean, it's on the study, there's how many cars, I don't know what you said, Joe, 7,000, 6,000. It's not gonna deter that. And I mean, you can't put a stop sign in and take it away, because then you're gonna have more accidents, and then it makes the city look more goofy because they don't know what they're doing. I just think we need to follow what the city code is, and the recommendation of the experts of who we have in there, and that's the engineering department. I mean, you've done the study on it. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, like I said, if you start saying, we all represent 1,100 people. If we have 2 people that want one here, 2 people want, I mean, you'd have stop sign. I mean, there's no way to monitor all that. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you.
So 16th and Chestnut is collector streets, and so there's more traffic on 16th than there is, because 12th is a collector, meaning I don't know what this means, I just know they both come out on the expressway. So more people are turning down. But ultimately, there is a decision at some point in time to put stop signs at 16th and Chestnut, because there's more traffic on 16th going this way to match the Chestnut traffic going this way.
Perhaps, yeah, I don't know
Who
the
knows at
criteria
that time.
that was used.
But at the same time, 12th does go all the way through, so it's kind of a main thoroughfare, whereas Chestnut is. And again, we have the school right there, which is what everybody's main concern is, about somebody getting hit eventually, just because it's a straight shot right through.
I'll say this, I've had 2 incidents, it's at that intersection, close calls of folks. I'm traveling west on Chestnut, and I've had folks pull right out in front of me off of 12. 2 separate occasions.
I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to put stop signs at the
Four-way stop.
Four-way stop at 12th and Chestnut.
I'll second that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion?
Can I say something, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, I just, I guess I would echo, I think, what Sherry was having to say earlier, and I think that hopefully if that's what you end up doing, it's not on trial basis, that it's then take it back out, because that, besides making us look more stupid, it makes the traveling public more leery. I thought there was a stop sign there yesterday, now it's not there today, what's going on? So I would be hesitant of, and I would think about this, of putting it in, and if there's noise problem, if it's up at 15th and whatever, that could be because of a four-way stop sign on 16th, where the traffic comes and it stops, and takes off and that, and there is quite a bit, but, and I realize the school's there and 12th and that, everything, and, that, but, just, I think, take, another look at it. I don't drive that a whole lot, but I do, and so maybe I'm not there at the right time, but, where there is traffic, I just don't see that it warrants it to have a four-way stop there. I don't know, so, it's your guys' ball game there, so.
I don't know how this would go. Would I make an amendment to my motion to make it a permanent stop sign? At the corner, four-way
That
permanent?
needed to be clarified.
I would think it would be
I wouldn't
permanent.
say the motion you made was good.
I just have a question. You have 8 accidents at this intersection in 4 years. And does that figures into your matrix somehow? How many accidents there are?
Yeah, so, accidents that could be attributed to, reduction in accidents if the stop sign were installed. You know, there's a provision in the manual, specific to, with the addition of stop signs, reduce, particular accidents, and those types of accidents would be the right angle accidents that would be, mitigated by the installation of a four-way stop. The matrix specifically looks at the number of right angle accidents in a 12-month period.
And you had mentioned on that matrix, are you good?
Good question.
2 of those, four-way stop criterias are recommended. And I see, stop sign, average volume is 300 vehicles an hour, but if you look over to the right at stop sign four-way, it's 300 hours major. What's the difference between those two?
So, the major street, the major leg would be Chestnut Street in this particular instance, and the minor would be 12th Street.
Okay.
And so, for an all-way stop, one of the criteria would be looking to hit that certain volume on the major and minor approaches.
And we studied the volume there recently.
Yes. Yeah, we were at average peak vehicles per hour on Chestnut Street. It's about 180 vehicles per hour and 50 on 12th Street.
Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Go to vote. All in favor, respond with aye.
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 Ayes have it.
Just a question. Is everybody okay with the expectation of it being installed in the spring instead of being done this winter, or do you want temporaries put up there for the winter and then permanents installed in the spring?
I would say we probably want to move on it sooner than spring. Right?
Just
temporaries.
Just
Couple
because
of
we
these
have frozen
accidents
ground,
were
so.
ice because of icy
Winter
conditions.
related, so
Yeah,
I think we,
So you can do temporary?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should do that, and then do we wanna address the sign before the sign? Is there
Well, typically what we do with new stuff is we simply just put the orange flags up on the top of them.
Okay.
Just draws attention to it.
Alright.
I would assume that that's a wide open condition, there's no obstruction, for what is it, 220 feet in front of it or something like that, that warrants the stop ahead signs.
Okay,
Plus it's also only 25, so.
Right, and it's all,
sounds good.
So,
Okay. All right, moving on, item number 3, review speed study report for Chestnut Street between Hill Street and 8th Street South. Mr. Eichstadt.
so at the committee's request, we went back to review the existing signage along Chestnut Street, specifically in front of Assumption High School and between Hill Street and Lincoln Street. And all the existing signage is in conformance with the manual uniform traffic control for school zones. And I did provide a supplement page for this. We didn't identify a need for additional traffic control. We did look to see if there were any supplementary signs that we could add. Didn't identify any that would be effective. There's already a lot of signs in that neighborhood. So adding additional signs we thought would be detrimental to the cause. But we did go through and create a list of potential options and their price points. If there's, like we mentioned last meeting, starting out with the low-hanging fruit and seeing what the outcomes of those are and kind of work our way through the list. But so initially, starting with maybe putting the mobile radar display out there, possibly increase police presence or enforcement. There's also we looked at the in-pavement, well, not in-pavement, but the in-street school crossing sign. There's a little picture of that in the packet. It's a tall rectangular sign to yield or stop to the pedestrians in the crosswalk. That could get added at the intersection of Hill Street and Chestnut Street. We've got signs that we move around to different locations throughout the year, and we could move that over there for a period of time. Any additional pavement markings, approximately, depending on what that is, if it's, school text painted on the pavement, any of those types of things could range around the $2,000 mark. And then physical improvements, speed tables, speed bumps, those sorts of things to help control speeds. Just approximately in the 10 to 15 range, along with addition of any flashing display type signs that would also fall in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
Thank you. Any questions or comments by committee?
Do we know what the original complaint was? Because I'm the alderman in that district, so was this from a while ago?
Yeah, it's been, I don't know when the.
I think this was a
This
referral.
was a Scott
Right,
Collins.
it's one of mine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the original, do we know what the original complaint was about?
The referral was to install centerline striping to control vehicle speeds.
And that was during school, like the concern was during school hours or during,
It was
Just anytime?
Anytime. Yeah.
and
So we
during,
went through and did a whole study like we do for all of them. Took a look at the speeds, and there weren't any findings that were indicative of a speed issue. Certainly, like the chief said, that yeah, there's some cars that speed, but the 85th percentile, that's the speed that 85% of the drivers feel comfortable driving at. In the speed counts we do, you can calculate the 85th percentile. And it was within the normal range of what we see on our residential streets. So nothing that would be something that would draw attention to it. And then certainly, the concern as well, the school kids crossing in front of the school, typically that's during times when vehicles are lined up, parked along the street. There's a lot of activity going on. Vehicles will naturally drive slower during those time frames anyway, because the street's narrower, and they can see that there's a lot of stuff to watch out for, and so they don't feel comfortable driving fast through there at that time. So all of the things that we looked at left us, at least on Chestnut Street, the section that we're looking at with limited options as far as what we could do to be effective.
And all the signs are there, appropriate signs are there for school area, school zone or whatever. So. And when all the cars are parked there, you really couldn't see any kind of radar sign telling you how fast you're going because the cars would be in front of it. And so the request was just for some white lines painted on the road? That was out there?
Yeah, the center line, the yellow center line.
Oh,
Yellow.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have a question. These flashing signs you keep talking about, I know they're expensive, but especially around schools, would there be grant money available someplace for these purchases, or is that something we've ever looked into?
Yeah, the city participated in a Safe Routes to School grant a while back for the public school system. There was, I can't remember if it was 100% grant, but it was all the federal requirements that were involved. It included, that funded the pedestrian crossing on A Street at Grove Avenue. And that's a rapid flashing radar display and pedestrian crossing, along with crosswalks and bike racks and signage and I think some sidewalk as well.
Sidewalk on Washington Street and, one block, no, not Grove, is it Clyde?
North.
Clyde on the north side of Grove School.
Yeah.
So how effective are those and how much maintenance is involved with them?
The one on A Street, it's programmed to match the school schedule. And so, this particular year, we've seen a large increase in programming issues. I don't know if we're still trying to troubleshoot the issues there, but, so outside of this particular year, we'd maybe have to visit them and check on them 2 or 3 times a year.
Thank you.
and this specific request was for yellow lines down the center of the road. I guess I was thinking it was something different than that. And I think somebody said along the way there, when it is during school hours, or when everyone's getting buses and everything's happening, you'd basically be crossing over, because I mean, it's a pretty tight fit in order to get 2 cars to cross there. So the yellow line's not doing any, I don't know what the yellow line would be doing. So when do we not put yellow lines in anyways? I guess I don't know the answer to that. Like, why isn't there a yellow line there, I guess?
Most of our local streets, we don't
It
stripe.
doesn't, okay.
The higher classification roadways will stripe, but even at 25 miles an hour, there's criteria, the manual that I'm referencing, they've got guidance criteria in there for centerline striping as well, when it's effective and worthwhile to put in. So usually when the street's narrower, you get to a certain traffic volume, higher road classifications.
So we don't have any concern, there's no complaints or anything about necessarily the speed or accidents or things that have happened here. It was just pretty much for yellow line. So I would make a motion, a positive motion to.
Or we just take no action on it?
Or take no action on it.
Report was reviewed and no action.
Okay, moving on, item number 4, review the parking ordinance revisions. Mr. Eichstadt.
So I will share my screen, and I'm sure if anybody's glanced at the document, there's a lot of slides, so certainly we can go through all of them, we can go through any of them that anybody has questions on, but ultimately the review was prompted by some things that we were seeing in the field with existing signage and parking concerns, and then we looked them up in the ordinance, and just the long and short of it is that it pointed to a bunch of discrepancies that may be between what's signed or what isn't signed and what's in the ordinance or what's not in the ordinance. So we thought, well, let's go through the no parking section of the ordinance and review everything. So the street department sign shop was out, they inventoried all the signs, cross-checked it against the ordinance, and then the engineering department sat down and went through all of those locations and identified, okay, here's what the original ordinance is, here's what the signs are, or what is or isn't out there, based upon the information that we received from the sign shop, and then tried to deduce what should we do with moving forward. Do we keep the ordinance? Do we recommend that the ordinance be removed? And or how do we sign it? Do we change the signs? Do we remove the signs? Do we add signs? And so the document that we put together walks through every single ordinance provision for no parking that had a discrepancy that needed to be reviewed and possibly updated. And so that's what we have this evening. Certainly there isn't a rush necessarily, I don't think, from staff perspective. So, this is something that could review in pieces, or we can take up again in next month's meeting, or whatever the case may be.
So I met with,
You're next, Sherry.
Oh, sorry.
so I met with Joel and we went over everyone, every single one of them. There was just a couple that needed changes, and it would take me a couple minutes to go through, but I'd like to make a motion to approve all of them, set aside those couple that needed changes. I think he has a list, right?
I do, yep.
You wanna see what Sherry had to
Go ahead
say?
with Sherry, I'm done.
Sherry, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Joe, and the street department, because I know this was on my list of things to do, and you guys have done a fabulous job. I know there was a lot of inconsistencies, and it was a lot of work, so I want to say thank you. Joe, I just have one question. It's on page 7 on, I think it's Lee Street, from 8th Street South to 8th, or on Lee Street, up 8th Street. I think that's the one between Burger King and, is that, okay, and so why isn't there any parking there? I guess I was kind of confused at that, on that particular street, why there was no parking allowed.
Yeah, I don't
Keep going.
We have a lot of page 7s.
well, it's page
Yeah, I know, and
six,
it's actually page 48
Oh, okay.
of the packet.
Okay. That helps.
Page 7.
So I recollect the one that you're referring to. I know that from A Street, a certain distance to the west, the parking is restricted there. Family Video used to be there to the north. I think it's Dollar Tree now, and then Burger
Yeah.
King to the south. And it's probably been in there for quite some time, and traffic patterns have likely changed. There probably used to be much more traffic that was there previously. On the south side, there's currently 2 driveways that are there, so there isn't much room to park there anyway. And then the proximity to A Street as well is partly a concern if somebody were to try to park nearby, but I can't remember if were there signs there, do you recall?
I don't recall. She said it's page 48 of the packet.
There were no signs, no. The other way, yeah. And I kind of thought so because I as I'm looking at when I was studying the diagram, from the is it the Dollar General, to the homes, there's not a whole lot of parking area in there, so I kind of figured it was that way. And then I just had another question, and I apologize. I think it's page 47 of the packet, and I might be wrong. I might have it. I have a bunch here. That was the parking on Levine, from 2nd to 3rd Street. And it indicated that they weren't sure why maybe there was no parking right there, but I'm just wondering because that is kind of a truck route from First Street going to the RCH building. If maybe at one time, you know, when it was old freeway, obviously would have been back then, if they didn't want parking on there because of the traffic going to RCH. So I didn't know if you took that into account or not.
That was slide 48, or page 48?
Page 47 I have written down, but I might be
So
wrong.
right
I
before the
apologize.
Burger King one.
It was Levine and, second and third. And I'm on my iPad, so I don't-
27.13.
Scroll, keep scrolling up.
1A12B.
Oh, 12B.
Yep, it'll say page.
That's the Burger King one,
Seven
so it's
on
the
there.
one before that.
There's multiple page 7s, but.
1A12B and 1A12.
There's the
There's
first
the-
one, it's the
the
next
next
one
one.
up.
Okay.
There you go.
So
Thank
that
you.
can-
There you go. Like I said, I think because of the semi-traffic coming from First Street, you know, they
Sure.
turn right there to go to Levine, to go to RCH. I didn't know if that's problematic when they're pulling off of First Street.
Yeah,
If they allow parking on both sides, that could be tricky because that is a truck route. So I just wanted to make sure you guys took that into consideration as well.
right, yeah, so this particular one, so currently the ordinance is no parking on the south side from Second Street to Third Street on Levine. There's currently no signs that are out there, so it's operating as if, you know, people could park there. You know, the traffic vehicles don't have any indication that they shouldn't park there. And yes, the truck traffic does go through on Levine Street to get to the very east end here. That's where their main entrance is. But, so because there were no signs in place out there, we thought that the parking restriction wasn't necessarily needed anymore. We did check the street width at that spot to make sure that it was wide enough to still accommodate parked vehicles. And that's why we were proposing to eliminate it.
And you're sure, I mean, I know you guys looked at it, but I know there's a lot of apartment houses and, you know, on both sides of the street right there. So I just wanted to make sure. I know most of them park in the parking, you know, their parking facility. I don't really ever see cars out there. And I'm sure because they know the semi-traffic is there. So I just.
But this shared,
I'm sorry?
this is just between Second Street and Third Street, where you're talking would be from First Street to Second Street, because.
Well, I didn't know because, you know, if they turn off First, obviously Second and Third is right there, but then, you know, they go all the way down the beach to get into Arcade. So I just was.
No, I was just referring to where you were talking about the apartment complexes where the on-street parking occurs.
That would be right off of, I think between First and Second
Yep.
is where they're at.
Nope, I would agree with you there.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that if we eliminated the ordinance per se, that, you know, then people were parking there. But like I said, I mean, I've lived here 25 years. I don't ever remember seeing cars parked there, so I just tried to make sure.
Any other questions or comments by committee?
Well, all I know is I've been calling that street Levigny forever, so I'm glad to hear the actual name is Levine, so I can start calling it the right name.
Patrick, did you want to go over it?
Sure, so my proposal, and I thank Joel for going through these with me, because it wasn't, well, like, a fun time at all. So, but they did a really professional job, they did excellent work, like, and it did take them a long time to go through this. So, yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve everything. And then do you want me to read the ones that I don't want or have set aside?
I would say we make a motion to approve everything and then subtract the items that you'd like to discuss.
Sure.
Or do we discuss it in-
Can we discuss it and
See
then
if we come up with a
approve it?
Sure, why don't we go that route?
Sure. First one, 27, 27.131E20.
Did you say E?
Yeah, 1E20.
Patrick, could you let me know what page that is?
Yep,
I don't have page numbers here.
I'll let you know in a sec.
These might have gotten mixed up because I really kind of went through these.
2020, right? It's where'd you go? 124, Sherry.
Keep going.
Thank you. I gotta get there. What street is that?
Prospect. Prospect?
Thank you.
So what we talked about is if there was, the street was wide enough to have parking on both sides, there is that school right there. Which is probably why they had it, there hasn't been any signs in place so far. So we discussed maybe just put it up for a vote, like what you guys think, if there should be a sign there. There hasn't been a sign, so.
So I did go back and review this particular one. So it's specific to the south side of Prospect from 11th Street west, 147 feet to the first driveway, just on the west side of the building. And I'm sorry, I thought my screen was still being shared here. Let's try this again. There we go. So the parking restriction that's in the ordinance is currently just for this location right here. And so we did do a little bit more verification after our meeting and determined that the school buses still use that space for loading and unloading.
Oh, okay,
Otherwise, the rest of the street, I believe, is open, so.
sure. So I would, since you say that, because we didn't discuss anything with buses.
Right.
So I would just leave that one then.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's only for an hour and a half. It's from 3 to 4:30 on school days.
Yeah. Okay, 27.131A12H.
So this is for the east side of Lincoln Street, 100 feet south of Peach Street. So it's really just where the bump out area is here. And initially when we were looking at it, it's like, well, we wouldn't expect vehicles to park there. There aren't any signs there. You know, maybe we just no change needed. We don't want people parking there, but you know, after a discussion, perhaps we could just consider removing the original ordinance altogether.
It's page 49 if anybody needs that.
So I'm up for eliminating it.
So.
Okay, I'm sorry, Patrick, what did you want? So, Joe, you indicated that there was no sign in place and there's no change needed. So what were you wanting to change, Patrick? I'm sorry.
Just to eliminate that ordinance. There is no sign in place, but it really doesn't need a sign because of the way the road is bumped out there, it's not needed, so just eliminate the ordinance.
And I think that piece
Thank
of,
you.
I think that piece of Lincoln Street is on our 3-year plan for reconstruction anyways. So more than likely, it's this layout of the road and everything like that is gonna change possibly at that time, so.
Okay.
And it's not operated as a school anymore anyway, so the traffic volumes are lower there.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No, is there another one?
Well, we have a lot more. I thought we were going one by one and deciding what we're gonna do on each one.
So are we voting on each one or just,
I don't know, would we need to vote on each one
or
or?
we just,
I mean, we can discuss it and then decide.
I mean, if everybody's, I think, okay with the changes so
I guess
far,
we,
we'll just-
maybe we hold out the items that we decide we're going to change from what was directed by staff, and then maybe we can approve them, that package of changes after the fact.
So I've got, so this document here, I've got the slides highlighted with the other, action. So I guess it's documented some form or fashion, it can be forwarded to council, however.
Okay, so basically if we agree to either taking up the ordinance or whatever decision is, if it's opposite of what was recommended, we'll just note that in the minutes and approve, after we've discussed everything.
Yep.
Okay. So go ahead and.
Okay. 27.13, 1A, 12B.
page 48?
And this is the Lee Street.
Yeah, we just want to.
Oh, okay, I was going through my papers.
Yep.
And did you guys decide to, you don't need that, or what was discussed? I missed it, I'm sorry. I was
The
focused on
Lee
this.
Street, I think, what the heck was that?
Because there's a parking lot there and the ordinance is only to the edge of that parking lot.
So yeah, there's no signs there today, and as far as we're aware, there's no parking issues or situation that exists there today, even though it's restricted in the ordinance. So, you know, the consideration to remove it from the ordinance is a valid one.
So
All right.
we're gonna go along with that one.
Okay. 27.13, 1A, 5I.
East Grand Avenue.
Page 31?
Okay, what you don't see on the slide, this right here is Dairy Queen, and there is a parking space in front of it. So according to this, 150 feet would eliminate that parking spot. So we had agreed that it should start right here.
112 feet.
Well, no, it would be, what was it, 70 something? You measured it.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly they can't park in front of the driveway, but to the east side of the driveway was 120 feet, which would still suffice.
So then you're saying we would make it so they could still park in front of Dairy Queen?
Yeah, so the ordinance today says no parking from East Jackson Street to a point 150 feet, which actually puts you into that parking stall. So we'll just shorten it up to 120 feet, and that's just shy of that parking stall, and then the rest of it on the north side there would still be restricted.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
I don't recall through the MUTC standard, does the sign have to be at that 120 feet then? Because we would have no way of putting a sign there. So then, if we moved it forward to what Patrick was saying to the, I believe that's a light pole there at the west side of that driveway. You know, does it have to match, you know, cause I'm assuming we would probably put no parking here to corner for a sign.
Yeah. I mean, another option that I guess this is very similar to the one on Lincoln Street that we just talked about. It's got a bump out, and you know, otherwise there's parking further to the east. That I don't know that we'd see a parking issue there.
It's not like a real natural place that you'd wanna park anyway.
Well, cause this ordinance again would go back to the original design, and if we all remember, there used to be a right turn lane there that would go onto Jackson Street, so that's a valid point of what Joe said,
Yeah.
it's not really
Needed no sign
warranted
required.
anyways.
So we'll change
So in
that.
essence, you could get rid of this ordinance for this one, correct?
Correct.
Just clarifying then, you can still park in front of Dairy Queen? Okay, cause that would tick a lot of people off if you
Yes.
took that away. It's
You're
pretty
gonna have to
realistic.
walk 35
I
feet.
know.
Okay, so we'll eliminate
People fight for those spots.
27.131A5.
Or sit in the car and wait for it. to
Okay,
go.
next.
27.13, 1A, 4A. This is a cul-de-sac on D Street, just off from Lincoln Street. And we've talked about actually not eliminating this one and placing a sign there, just because for conformity with other cul-de-sacs. In your packet, there's another cul-de-sac that needed some attention, so for that was
To not eliminate the ordinance then?
not eliminate it and add a sign there.
Yeah, that would be beneficial for us because all the snow goes to that end
Mm-hmm.
there, and so vehicles are in the way. Which may be part of the reason why the sign is gone, because to push up the snow and stuff like that, but.
Sure. Any objection to that?
No.
Okay, I think we can go with signing that cul-de-sac.
27.132 F6A. So currently they have 10 stalls that are permit parking, and they only sell 3 to 4 permits every year for workers that work across the street there. And since they're doing that new park there, I thought it would be good, you know, why have half the parking lots filled with permit parking right in front of the new park that we're putting in. So Joel and I discussed maybe making that into like 5 stalls or something like that. Something reasonable.
So those stalls, are they given to a specific business? Is that
So they can apply for permit parking,
okay?
and then it's just first come, first served basis, and it's an annual permit. And when they were first identified as permit parking stalls, there was a lot more interest as around the time that the county was moving into the river block building. And subsequent to that, the farmer's market is held there. And so we've seen less people get permit parking because of that reason, because every Thursday then they can't park there. But but annually, there's 3 or 4 that park permit parking there.
Okay. So we're not getting the full 10 even bought up in a year?
No.
Okay. Any objections to going from 10 to 5 stalls?
No objections.
Okay, we'll make that change. Next.
27.131C19. I think this was just a change in their error, or in the ordinance. It was errored when they first put it out, but it's basically 4 houses from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It's just south of Ida's restaurant there on Lincoln Street on the right side. And we had no idea why this was an ordinance, and I haven't had time to stop down and talk to the neighbors there and see what their thoughts are, the residents at that place. So this I'd like to hold out.
That'd be something we can maybe toss on next month's agenda.
Sure.
Okay. Next.
Now, Joel, there was a bunch of these that we had discussed, like does it say during school hours on the sign and
Yes.
stuff like that. We don't have to go through that. We don't have to set that aside, right? You're checking into that.
Right,
and that's-
and so I did check into it, so the area surrounding Lincoln High School, like Pepper Avenue, James Court, those streets, we did go back and verify that they should say, school days, rather than just Monday through Friday.
Okay,
So that's been corrected in in the slides.
Okay, good. And then, the last thing was just those couple spelling errors, grammar errors, those, we went through.
Yep.
So I'd like to just have those be approved. So basically, it's just this one that I would like to keep out till next month, approve everything else.
Okay, care to make a motion?
That's the motion.
Okay, we have a motion, how about a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, is there any more discussion? Anybody? Hearing none, go to vote, all in favor, start with aye. Aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thanks for all your work on this, you guys.
Yeah.
And thanks, Patrick, thanks to you too.
Yes, absolutely. Moving on, item number 5, transportation utility update. Mr. Exton, is that you or-
Yes, I've got a brief update this evening. There is a one-page document, just basically highlights talking points, notes, just for reference. So currently we are, we've got a copy of the model, and there are approximately just over 1,000 parcels that are flagged as preliminary. And so we're actively going through those. We've gone through most of them. So an initial round of review, city staff has gone through and completed an initial round of review on these questionable parcels or things that we need to look at firsthand. So we've gone through those. We're gonna package all those changes up and get them back to R.A. Smith by the end of this week. And there's a 100 or 200 accounts, somewhere in that ballpark, that we have to do some further investigation and review on yet. But the goal is to have all the accounts reviewed and as accurate as we can get them by the end of January. And then possibly begin public review timeframe sometime in February through March, and whatever duration is beneficial and needed. And then possibly consider reviewing the ordinance again in March or April. At the February Public Works meeting, in discussions with the finance director today, we could pull together some scenarios and target funds, and get those scenarios back to the committee and council to review. That'll be the next, I guess, milestone discussion point, so that when we start the public review process, that we know what the target may likely be. So when answering property owners' questions, we can say, well, this is what your fee would be. It's completely dependent upon how much money is that the city is looking to generate through the utility. So the target funding, I've got a few notes on there as far as options or combinations. I mean, it's completely open yet at this point. I know that prior discussions included fully funding reconstruction projects with possibly adding in the resurfacing component. That was kind of the full, a fully funding type option. Special assessments, they're valued at about $350,000, so that would be perhaps on the lower end. And so, like I said, the scenarios and stuff we put together here for preparation for the next committee meeting. And then following identification of the best target to use, and then we'd start that public review process and invite the public to inquire. If they so choose, they could contact us and email or phone call or stop in and visit, and we can discuss what their utility fee might be and what it's based on.
So we'll have numbers correlating to all 3 of these scenarios.
Or other scenarios.
Okay.
These were ones that were previously discussed and talked about, but certainly there may be more. I know there was some discussion with Tim DeSorsi earlier that we might, we thought of a phased in approach to show how it may impact debt payoff and property taxes, over the course of time, and something that could be phased. So it isn't a dramatic, abrupt change as well, so that's another option.
So this is Sherry. I have a quick question. When we were looking at, the transportation utility versus the wheel tax and that, and I can't remember if it was Patrick Delaney, I not to put you on the spot, Patrick, but I can't remember, and I looked through my notes and I didn't find it. Did somebody have the number of vehicles that were registered in the city?
We do have that number. I don't know it offhand though.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have that it's in the, actually I might be able to bring it up while we talk here.
I know I looked through all my stuff and for some reason I wasn't able to find it. Because I know, but the Village of Port Edwards had just instituted their wheel tax and that, and so I was just trying to look at what the number of vehicles were in the city of Rapids that were registered that we could obtain that amount of money from as well, but if someone could give me that.
Any other questions or comments?
I have comments. Okay, so with this transportation utility, I agree with Sherry and the comments that she had made as we're going along about how this could really get out of hand if we're creating a beast here, and we need to put a leash on it somehow. The original reasoning for this was to get rid of special assessments. And in my view, I think that's all it should pay for. It should be in the ordinance that it's just for special assessments, which is a quarter of the actual cost. Is that correct?
Of what it?
Construction costs. That's what a special assessment is.
Yeah, so the 350,000 versus roughly the 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would spell it out in the ordinance and make it a founding ordinance so that in order to change it, it would take 6 of the council members to make any changes to it. The whole reason that it was started was for the special assessments. I say instead of starting it out at $2 million, I think that's a lot.
It's at 2.5.
Yeah.
This is what this is saying, not quite 2.5, but it's there.
And also it would help with billing because then you wouldn't have to bill every month. You could bill quarterly, or if people wanted to pay it all right up front, because it wouldn't be that much. I mean, you take that, divide it by 7,000 properties on average, it's really not that much. So that's my thoughts. That's my comments on it.
Where do you get the other 2 million from? Sorry, Sherry.
That's okay. So Patrick, spanning out on that, I know we haven't looked at our transportation utility in 4 months or whatever. So I just encourage everyone to kind of pull out your paperwork and kind of look back through. I know there was a lot of good information in there in different scenarios. But one thing, and I know I'm not on the committee, but just speaking ahead of time at the council level, I really was cautious about, and I don't have it in front of me, I'm sorry, I'm not prepared. I believe it was that item number 6 about being able to use that money for different things of the city, and I was worried about, like, okay, we want to build the new city garage, so they could take money out of that because it was used primarily for transportation. And we all know the intention of what it's used, but I have a hard time selling it to my constituents saying, okay, we're going to use this for special assessments, and I agree, that's why we started this. I would like to start slow, do the special assessments, and then maybe expand on it at some point in time. But I'm very worried because I don't want to be the person that sells it to our constituents and then say, oh, well, now we have to borrow because we used that money to build the new city garage, or, those kinds of things. So, and I can't remember, I know, Joe, you probably have it maybe in front of you. I don't remember if it was item number 6 or whatever, but I wouldn't want that in the utility, but that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Dean?
Yeah, well, when this originally came up, it was special assessments was basically called 1. And then we did like a 1.5 where we tiered things, and that was quite a while ago, probably 8 months ago, I would guess. And these were tiers. So these numbers that are in this report reflected kind of what we talked about. And there was, as it went around the room, there were people that were, I like 2.0 or I like 1.5. And so we're kind of back at that point now. It's not the same people anymore.
Right.
And and so basically these are how things were tiered. And so I think getting, the goals of you set of having it some numbers to us by February, so we can actually look at this number and whether it's, I don't know that it was originally just to get rid of special assessments, although a lot of the pressure was, I know to certain people that are having big projects and to the mayor, people were talking about these special assessments through the roof, and that's where this whole thing came up. We looked at wheel taxes, as Sherry mentioned. Those didn't seem to go very far, and we talked about those.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, and I'll add, I mean, it's not just special assessments, it's the average age of the city streets within Wisconsin Rapids. And, you're at 60% of city streets are at or beyond their life expectancy. And, every year we're borrowing, $1.5 million to repair those streets on top of, whatever else comes up. So just going with the special assessments in my mind is, obviously that's a problem that we have to resolve, and I think one way or another we're going to get rid of special assessments. I really hope that happens, but it still doesn't solve the problem with our aging city streets and infrastructure. And maybe Paul, you can speak a little bit about the city's struggle to try to keep up with what's needed as far as city street repair.
Well, yeah, and I unfortunately I haven't been coming to his meetings because Joe Terry was previously doing it or whatever, so I can't exactly say what was shared or not. But I believe we're at about 170 miles of roadway that we maintain, and we're doing roughly less than just shy of 1 mile every single year. Well, a road is not going to last 170 years, and so that was what kind of the intent was. Currently, we budget about $120,000 in a mill and fill project that's currently done within my public works budget, and it would, that's just kind of taking care of the really bad spots, and that additional funds would help to take a roadway life cycle of 60 years, and the infrastructure in the ground is still good for 100 years, and so it would be to simply go whether to mill and fill that 2 additional miles to make up for the mile that we're not doing, or, it may be a complete pavement replacement. There's lots of areas that, I can't tell you the years that there was a big expansion of the annexation of the Grand Rapids areas, where a lot of contractor work was done. And so we have pavement structure that has inadequate road base underneath it. And so that's why you're seeing premature pavement failure, because there's not enough structure there. So like those ones, you may have to go and do a complete pavement replacement, get enough structure under there to get the remaining 50 to 60 years of life out of it. It would allow us to look at that, a little bit more. I mean, but in the same aspect, we got roads that are out there that are 80 and 90 years old that are chip seal roads that have more chip seal on them than they have asphalt on them now, and we're getting by. Our main objective was to hit the arterial streets or the heavier traveled areas, where the pavement, everybody says our roads are bad, but I travel a lot for youth athletics and stuff like that, and there's other areas that are worse than us, but could we use some additional funding? Absolutely, but it all depends upon what we'll make every single dollar you guys give us stretch a dollar, so.
So right now, this is looking at, if we were to do all of these, special assessment, new road construction, and then resurfacing program, it would be, we're looking at $2.3 million. So one way or the other, we have to come up with $2.3 million. And then the question is, can we hold that line and say, okay, we have $2.3 million, and are we gonna take it, like, to what you're saying, are we gonna take special assessment from, we're just gonna do the transportation utility for special assessment, but we still need the, whatever, the, 1.95 million, $1.95 million. Where are we gonna get that from? Are we gonna still borrow for it, or are we going to
I think-
say, let's
it's-
shrink the government and find it in the budget? Which a lot of people will say that's not doable. I don't know if it's doable or not, but that's what I get is pushback right away that's saying the 1.9 or $2 million is not in the budget. But that's the question. That's what a question I keep posing is the $2 million in the budget if we go in deep dive into the budget, or are we going to take out debt for $2 million, or are we going to set up this transportation utility to get the 2.3 million, the full thing instead of just the assessments? So there's three ways of looking at it right now. And I think to the point before is we've learned a lot more going through the budget process, or at least I'll speak for myself, I have, because we started with transportation utility. We were being told this is the way it is. And for the most part, your numbers were pretty right on to what we were being told. But now we know that there's money out there that we could probably do so that it's not necessarily, I understand what Tom said the other day, that the budget's balanced in the sense that we can afford to make our debt payments. But we're still, 50% debt capacity, like we're in a really, in my opinion, an unstable position. But for other people, they don't mind that kind of debt, and I guess it's okay. But I just keep coming back to the question, we have to decide where we're getting the money from. Are we gonna get all of this money from the transportation utility, which then scares the heck out of me, and what I think is what Sherry's saying and Patrick is saying is, you go for 2.3 million, then what are we going for next?
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Like, the city is run over budget for many years. They're over $60 million in debt. And, okay, so we get this, and then what's gonna be the next thing? Are they still gonna run $2 million over debt? I mean, I would
Because
imagine
this
they
is
would.
only dealing with
If you look
roads.
at the history of the way the city has been run, and just look out, okay, if history dictates future, they're gonna do the same thing.
We're gonna find stuff to take debt out on,
They
and
definitely
we got
will.
the transportation
Well, the thing
utility.
is the citizens of Wisconsin Rapids are in the top 2% of taxes for real estate. And then they say that they don't have enough money, but I work with other municipalities and they actually have a fund available in case something bad happens, and they run on budget every year. And they don't have close to $30 per for a mill rate. They're half that. So
I know we're getting off point a little bit here, but I think that's what the question keeps coming back to for some of us anyways, is we're going after this large sum of money in the transportation utility, and that could just continue to spiral. It's not really addressing the fact that, do we have the money already in our budget? And I guess we gotta figure that out. If not, again, we're creating a utility that could be a monster, or we're continuing to take out debt and just paying for special assessments, not to complicate things further.
Well, the other thing we have to remember too is when we originally talked about this, one of the things that we said, obviously this is changing the dynamic because business is picking up what previously the residents did. And so I mean, if I remember the numbers right, I think it was, the street budget was handled about 60 to 65% was paid for by citizens, and about 35% was paid for by businesses, by their taxes. The theory was that this would reverse those numbers. So the numbers were basically, and that's why getting that last 15% that we've been waiting for, that's why that's so important, how business is impacted. I know when Sherry said, I'm selling my constituents, I can't sell my constituents on this if there's no relief in property tax. If the point is that if they're paying more when this is done, and business is paying more, then it's a problem. So I think we really have to think about what number we're going for. And because one of the things about it is, yes, will it cause businesses to move out of town? I know we talked about McDonald's raising a hamburger by a nickel or all those kinds of talk, but will it, I don't know that it'll cause businesses to leave town, but if it worked out, it would also, people that weren't from our town would be paying for our roads in many ways.
Oh, I like the idea of it.
Mhm.
It, you know, no matter which way you go, it is a tax.
Of course,
I
yeah.
mean,
Right.
so, okay, your levy limits are already at the highest they can be. That's the reason for this, is because they're already taxing the citizens at the very highest amount, and now they're looking for other ways to generate some more capital. Instead of looking at their budget and figuring out ways to cut their budget back to meet it. And it's not that much, like we had talked just last night. It's only 5% of the budget. So they're going to be working on that this year, and I'm very hopeful for it. But adding this on without doing anything else, I think is a mistake. I agree with Sherry that it could really get out of control.
And if I may, just one thing that we all need to remember as well, is because I know with special assessment, they usually start having those hearings in April. So I don't know at what level we need to decide that maybe, I believe Tim had said that we could push those assessment hearings back farther, because I believe they start in April. And if we don't have all our information, and it's sad because we were presented with this, and we studied it. Now I've been looking at it, but I don't know if everyone else has been looking at it. And like Dean indicated, some of us may have changed our mind, or other things have come up, but we really need to get focusing on it, or we're going to have to push those assessment hearings back, because I know obviously it's not my district, but I know people that live there, and they're very worried about this. They want at least the special assessment taken care of. But I know, Joe, I said you had talked about that as well, that, we may have to push those back if we can't make a solid decision by then, so those people aren't stuck out in the wind.
I think a good number to start at would be $1 million, or yeah, 1 million. And then if we decide to go up from there, you can easily calculate it in your head. If you get a bill for $400, it would be, if it goes up to 2 million, it'd be 800. If we decide to go less, about $500,000 to cover the special assessments, then it would be $200. So
I understand that the hesitation and discussion about what we want this utility to generate, especially with the budget talks that we've had. But at the minimum, we definitely need to take a look at the special assessments and get that taken care of. I think we're all in agreement on that.
yes.
Well, go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna interject here real quick. So, obviously we'll put those scenarios together, put some numbers to it, some options, and bring those back in February so that you guys have, more things to look at, I guess. But hopefully it helps clarify some things as far as debt payoff and reduction to property taxes and how those things would coincide based on each different sort of target fund level that we want to look at. And then in addition, I did run across that number, Sherry. It's 19,933 vehicles are registered in the city of Rapids.
What was that, Joe? I'm sorry.
There's 19,933 vehicles.
Okay, that's great. That's good information. I know I've been having a lot of calls. I'm sure you guys have as well, emails from different people. And it's just tough. I mean, I know the city has changed. We've lost businesses. People aren't here anymore. And I know everyone keeps saying, find it in the budget and that. But as we all know, we have to do more with less because the state cuts us off and, we have to operate in the tax levy. So, without raising taxes. So like everyone, we're trying to, stay afloat with the same and it's just not possible. But I just worry because I mean, the city we have a lot of small businesses and I know some of you are small business owners and I just kind of worry about them as well because yes, we have some larger employers, but basically our city is smaller businesses. Now in Minocqua, smaller businesses thrive because that's a go-to place. They're all unique. They can survive. City of Wisconsin Rapids can't survive on small business. But if we're pushing this down, depending on what they have to pay, I mean, like, I can't remember if that was Patrick that said that or Dean, but, some of the businesses, I mean, we know the small business owners, they're not millionaires. They're doing it because they have a passion. And, they wanted to create their business because they love what they do and, and make a little money. But I mean, if we're now eating their profit, why would they stay here when you can drive 20 minutes away, go to Plover, and you don't have to pay it? This is all we have is smaller businesses here. And if they're all gone, then what do we have? And it's just tough. And no matter, I think about it every day and there's just no great answer. But, thank you.
Anything else?
I hate to beat a dead horse, I guess, but I mean, if we don't want to do that, then you keep taking out debt. Don't go after the money in the budget if they don't feel like that $2 million is in there, but there's $350,000 in special assessments that we absolutely can find in the budget and do away with special assessments. That's what I made a motion to do a little while back. Ended up withdrawing it, but that's the reality. Do away with special assessments for $350,000 to $500,000, depending on what it's going to be. Don't take out more debt, then you don't create the transportation utility, which burdens the businesses and creates something that could turn into a monster later on.
I think I'd correct you there. I mean, if what we go after is special assessments, businesses are paying those as well. When streets get torn up, they have to pay their fair share as well.
Oh, I know.
So, I mean, in that sense, that I think there's value to the transportation utility to at least cover our special assessments. So, at a minimum. Okay. Moving on, item number 6, review December engineering and street department activities report.
All right, so what I just gave you, handed out, is the Public Works Department report for December. Before, I think you used to get it as a combined item here, whatever. So in December, one major thing, and I don't recall if it was brought up in November, but the last 2 months here, we lost but had 2 retirements of employees that have been with us for 21, and Dennis Folk is on vacation right now, but he'll be retiring here in February. Dennis started in 1990, the end of January, and pretty much spent his whole career either doing recycling, and then the last 4 or 5 years when we switched to the automated collection, he was a garbage truck driver. So we kind of looked at the numbers, and with having 45, 48 employees in Public Works, roughly 30% of our guys have been with us longer than 10 years, and the other 70% is less than 10 years, so we have quite a new work group, and so that has challenges, but it's also brings some different ideas and things like that. So, so just wanted to point that out. As far as our construction projects, we did extremely well this year. We completed a couple additional projects that weren't on our schedule. 18th Avenue did get completed, which you guys saw in November. But all we have left is to do the restoration piece south of Chase Street. So everything north of Chase Street is, the black dirt is done and seeded, Dormant seeded it. The remainder of it, some of it came in quite nicely. As you recall, we purchased that hydro seeder that we had rented for the 2 months in the last meeting. So that's really the only carryover project that we have, which is refreshing because a lot of years we have a couple projects to do the restoration on it, and so we don't have that, so we'll be able to get after things right away in the spring. What was it, the second week of December, we had the windstorm come through, which did not, surprisingly, we didn't have too much damage considering the amount of people that were without power. We did have damage, within the city and some in the parks. So we did provide an additional brush pickup that was not scheduled. That because of the snow events that we had, we did not get it totally completed. Now we've had 3 different snow events here that we haven't been able to recover from, but we will try to get back out and pick up the remainder piles that are out there, because there are some big ones that you can see outside of the snowbanks, but there are some that are in the snowbanks that we'll get in the spring, obviously, if we can't get them because of the amount of snow. One item that I didn't mention, our Christmas tree pickup is always the last full week of the month, so just in case you get answers for that, it's I believe it's the 21st of January is the last full week, and at that time too, if there's brush that's put out, we will grab that when we do our Christmas tree pickup. So because of Dennis's retirement, we have a lot of shifting of personnel. That takes a lot of time, because we still follow some of the activities or structure that we had in place when we were a union shop, as far as a person going from being a common laborer to a truck driver, or from a truck driver to equipment operator, or a truck driver to a garbage truck driver, so we have to go through and do all that assignments of staff, and then do that training piece. So that's a lot of what has happened in December because of those 2 vacancies, the late November, first part of December. But we are fortunate yet that our 2 compost sites, we have Kafka granite that comes in from Marathon City that grinds our compost currently at no cost. There isn't very many municipalities around here that Kafka does not charge. We're fortunate to be one of those. I'm hoping that continues to be, especially right now the fuel prices being high and stuff like that. There's a market for the wood grindings. They sell to the Rothschild paper mill for boiler fuel. For a while there, with the fuel prices being really low, they were looking for additional markets for it. So right now that is back up. We completed screening of our compost for the spring of 2022, so that's there for the residents when the compost sites open back up. We took delivery of our salt sand. Like I said, we've had probably 4 snow events here throughout the year that we've had to go through and take care of. And then the rain that we had after the first weekend of December. We also, one of the items that I'd like to speak about here in a different agenda item, we also then went and placed our salt sand bins out in various spots throughout the city. like I say, spent a lot of time training some new employees on pieces of equipment and things like that. And then we worked with Graphic House Design, the project that the community development is doing with the wayfinding signs. They got a late start on that or whatever, so there's some signs that'll be going up in I think it's February they were talking about doing the installation, so that's where you see the orange barrels on the street sides and the boulevards, because that's where the sign, they actually have sonotubes and everything like that buried already, so we're just protecting them from stepping on or rolling an ankle or stepping on the bolts and things like that. You know, obviously it's a bad time of year to be doing anything with painting and signing, but you know, this ordinance, the no parking ordinance has been kind of something that we've been working on for probably 14 months. Because we recognize a lot of our no parking signs are extremely faded and you can't hardly read some of them anyways. And so that's what our challenge was, is to go through and identify areas that were bad, and then, okay, is it right according to ordinance? Instead of putting up what was up there, let's put up what belongs up there, you know, so. And then obviously we had some storm damage through signs and things like that when the storm came through, and then obviously every single snow event we have at least two signs that get damaged, you know. Our shop, that end of things, you know, we constantly get police vehicles that come in, ambulances that, or, you know, that needs to have annual or monthly services or routine services and things like that. All of our construction equipment is now coming in from our construction season, so we do our annual maintenance on that, make sure there isn't a hose that's leaking that's gonna shut us down 1 week into the construction season, you know, so we start to do that. You know, we have some very talented individuals in our shop that go through and hard surface our excavator buckets and loader buckets and things like that, so that we extend the life out of that stuff, you know, so. Our garbage collection, I skipped over that, I apologize, for the month is estimated. I always have to estimate these because I don't have the last week, but it's pretty consistent, so we're down about 40 tons on the garbage collection, and our recycling is pretty consistent of where we've been over the last year, so. With that, any questions?
I just wanted to say that last month, with that purchase that you made, excellent. You saved the citizens over $10,000. Although you were beat last night by Chief X, who beat you by nearly $30,000 of savings. So,
Yeah.
just wanted to
Thank you.
let you know. I really appreciate that. I'm sure the residents of Wisconsin Rapids do too.
Absolutely.
Quick run through the engineering department report. Keep it brief unless there's other questions or comments. A notable item with the degradation fees, we did go through final inspections of all of the utility permits that excavated in the city right of way, and you know, double checked all the measurements, final measurements, you know, post construction paving, and a couple of the projects actually had significant excavations at the end of their project. So the total prior to our final inspections, stuff that we had billed out at permit time for degradation fees, it's about $65,000. And then after our final inspection here in December, there was another $65,000 that was, I guess, needs to be invoiced yet to the utility companies. So we're still finalizing that, but we should be invoicing here in the next week. With the ITS signal grant along the expressway, we are soliciting proposals for consultants to do that work, and we'll be bringing that back to the results of the proposals back to committee in February. The Rapids East Commerce Center Rail Spur project, that's still underway. The deadline for substantial completion is January 8th. So Ameritrac has been working diligently to get that project substantially complete. Most of the engineering department through December was focused on wrapping up all of the 2022 project designs. So they've We did successfully get through all of them except for Rosecrans Street, which is a dead-end resurfacing project. So that's a much smaller project in scope. But we did get survey in for that, and over the next month here, we'll put together a plan sheet. But all those got out to the utility companies and other city departments for review. Other than that, that's any questions?
Anyone?
I just have one question, and I don't know if Tim's still on, or Joe, you can answer this. Has there been, I haven't heard anything from the city regarding any of the federal grant money, the infrastructure money or COVID money. Has anyone heard anything of that? Can we use any of those funds for any projects, or any update on any of that, if anyone knows?
I'm not aware of the nature of that.
Is Tom like finance, or is there any information on the finance committee side?
I don't know if Tom's with us anymore.
No.
Is Tim still here or not?
He's still signed in on Zoom, but I'm not sure.
Okay. It'd just be interesting to see if there's any of that money there. So.
Okay.
Hello.
There he is.
I'm sorry, I stepped away for a second. What was the question? I'm sure is Tim still here?
Oh, Tim, I just had a question. As far as any of the COVID money, I know all the munis were kind of, sitting on their hands because they didn't know, they didn't have any clarification on any of that.
Right.
Or anything regarding, the infrastructure money that's trickling down. I mean, do you know anything about any of that, any progress or anything?
Yeah, right now, obviously we received our allocation, half of our allocation of our 1.8 million plus some change for ARPA funds. And, right now, we're kind of going through the actual approved expenditures of those funds. But, there was a bill in Congress about opening up the flexibility where, because right now the ARPA funds can be used for, water, sewer, and then some other things. And then there's a flexibility bill that was in Congress that would allow you to use it basically for any reason, for a municipal purpose. And that would be like streets or any other types of things. So I'm kind of waiting to see how that plans out. And kind of by this next quarter in 2022 is kind of vetting those purposes, bringing that through the finance committee and the council to determine, make decisions on how we want to spend those funds over the next multiple years, because we have until the end of 2024 to expend those funds.
Okay. And then while you're on, can you just reiterate, like I said, I just want everyone on the committee and the council who's listening, regarding the transportation utility, I think everybody wants to get rid of special assessments, but if we're kind of poking and we're not making headway, what's the latest deadline that we would need to extend those hearings out so that we wouldn't miss it?
So we had the preliminary resolutions for those special assessments, so it doesn't necessarily have to occur in April, where we set the final resolution, and then basically upon passage of that's where the special assessment invoice or bill is generated. So, if we're kind of like vetting through the various options, I've been listening, getting a lot of input from the various alderpersons and things like that, and bring back information. But April isn't like a drop dead deadline that we have to have those hearings. We could have them in July, August, September. So, I think the important thing here is there's a lot of good input into this. As staff, we had a meeting today where we're saying, okay, we're going to present different scenarios. I know there's discussion on the 2023 budget process that'll factor into this, and I think that in conjunction with the utility plus the 2023 budget process, I
I feel confident that, early next year, or by the time, between, April, May, June, we'll be able to kind of vet this all out and see where we want to go as a council in the city.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on, item number 7, review the snow removal ordinance and policy. Paul?
All right. So like I said, number one, I gotta apologize because I didn't get this to you guys until Monday in email, and if you didn't see it, you didn't get it till right now. So this is the policy that we typically plow snow by. It has not been looked at since 2014. And so in your email, there was 3 items. The first one was just our update, and then there was 2 PDF files that the first 4 pages of what I handed to you is the actual policy, and then the last must be 10 or 12 pages are actually the different attachments that are referred to in the policy. And so however you guys would like to go through this, if you want to stew on it here for a month, or if you want me to go through it and go through, there are a couple things that I don't have in here yet that I would like to get your opinion on. I have kind of an idea that we don't at any place in our policy address mailbox damage, and unfortunately we got all the person venomins last year, but there's different things that people do. Our current activity is that if we hit it ourselves, structurally hit it, we repair it, but that has come back to kind of, there's some of the newer residential neighborhoods that have 6 mailboxes in one spot, and it's $2,400 to replace, that structure that's there, and so we actually had a situation where we couldn't find that, and so luckily we had some talented individuals that we were able to fix it structurally and put it back in place, but one of our ideas was just to set a standard where we could simply just write a check to say, here, sorry, here's a check for $100, or we could simply go through and replace it with a standard wood post in a plastic box, so that's something that we could do moving forward. We've had some research as to, what Wood County Highway does and Stevens Point, but it's all over the place. Some people just simply give them $50, some people replace it in kind, and so it's what we don't have anything, and so.
I think the option of each, because some of these people, our residents are elderly, and
Yep.
if you would come in, if you damaged it, you should pay for
Correct.
it and replace it,
Yep.
and like they should have the option of a replace, or if they want to check for $50 and they want to bang the dents out and straighten it out themselves.
Sure. So like I say, that's something that if you want to think on it, and I can bring you, multiple recommendations for February, I'd be happy to do that, or if you want to go with it, like I said, whatever. I know we've been here for a while already, and I can just, some of the stuff in the policy itself is just restructuring. Like I said, if you look on your last sheet, this was originally written back in 1984, so it's been around for quite some time. And so I simply showed in red the changes that I made, and the cross outs would be something to eliminate. But virtually, I'll just go through it quick. The Public Works Department, we use weather apps just like everybody else, and we also, Wood County Highway belongs to a service that we call and piggyback off of them sometimes, just to see what they're seeing. But for most part, myself and then 3 other subordinate supervisors are on call, during the week, and on the weekends we rotate through with, I believe there's 6 of us now. But ultimately, if it's overnight activities, we rely on the police department to call us and say, hey, you guys got to come to work because we got slippery or snow or something like that. Right now, the policy is that we do not plow residential neighborhoods until there's a 4-inch accumulation. Sometimes, in the policy, it lets us do lesser amounts. And sometimes, we'll get a 2-inch snowfall on Monday and then another 2-inch snowfall on Wednesday. So then obviously you had multiple 2-inch snow events. So we're going to take care of it at that point, to eliminate it there. The city is kind of getting ahead of myself. So we currently have 18 different units that we can use to plow snow. For the most part, we, of those 18, we don't really use all 18 until we get a large snow event. You know, something over the 8 to the 10 inches is then we put everything out that we possibly can, you know. Sometimes we're restricted by our staffing levels, obviously around Christmas time and things like that. We have guys that use their time off and things like that, so we, you know, call them in if we need to, if it's a large event. But for the most part, you know, a standard snow event, we will go out with 3 motor graders, 6 loaders, and then we have four sanding units. You know, 2 of them are tandem axles now. 2 of them are single axles. And then we have another spare that we kept the old sander out of another truck and put it in a tandem, so that you know, ice events. It's crazy. We get, you know, just almost as many ice events in a year that we do major snow events, and so to be able to attack those quicker, we kept a spreader out of one of the old trucks and retrofitted one of the existing tandems that we have, so that we can go at ice storms and, you know, with 5 vehicles instead of just 4. And then we also have a spare, obviously. Then we typically plow the city parking lots with 2 pieces of equipment. We have a tractor backhoe that has a snow pusher on the front of it, and then a smaller loader that we have a snow pusher on that also. We have 2 sidewalk tractors that go around and do all the city maintained sidewalks and bike trails and things like that, where we can't get a pickup with a 1-ton in. You know, and then other stuff for spares also. You know, so like I say, street closures, there's streets that aren't developed, that are just gravel streets, that we don't maintain those in the winter time. And that's, so, I'm sorry, as far as units goes, there's an attachment, I believe it's attachment number 1, that goes through and lists the different pieces of equipment that we use on a routine basis, and then also identifies the pieces that are just kind of spares. So then, item number 4 here is the streets that are closed during the winter months. You know, there I'm showing some of the streets that were developed that no longer are not plowed, you know, because we've had developments on them, and then there's been improvements made, so we now plow those. Some of the streets are being added, you know, so that's, once again, the black is what was originally done in 2001. Once we approve this, I'll change the date to 2022. You know, it's just, like I say, getting this information to you guys there. So the ones that have the cross out through it are no longer eliminated in the winter months. We actually plow those. The ones that are red letters are the streets that we made some sort of improvement to them, taking them from whether it be a wooded street and graveled them, you know, that we just don't plow because they've been improved, but they're still not totally developed yet as far as residents are needing to access them or whatever. So then speak about a de-icing plan. You know, it's not the intent of this policy for us to salt everything just because we won't be able to afford it. You know, salt is now about $97 a ton again. You know, it kind of a dip down, you know, $10, $15 for like the last 5 to 6 years, and now it's kind of coming back up again. Some of it is diesel pricing. Diesel price delivery coming from the Fox Valley is where we get our material. And so, like I say, this year we're about up to $97 a ton. We purchase our salt through the state DOT, so it's I guess would be right to say a regional bid. So like everything in Wood County, the city of Wisconsin Rapids, Wood County Highway, I believe city of Nakusa and Port Edwards, and then the Ho Chunk Nation are all part of that bid. So then they, you know, we have X amount of tons, and so everybody kind of gets the same price then, based on that bid, and it all comes from the same supplier. We currently typically on a normal winter use about 1,900 tons of salt. That's what our salt shed is capable of, and I try to start out every single year with a full salt shed carrying over from the previous year. Last year that wasn't hard because we didn't have much of a winter, you know, so that allowed me to, our budget is down slightly because obviously I got 1,900 tons in there, you know, and so to try to rotate that through. But the city is broken into 4 different spots, you know, so like it says here, priority 1 being our highways and our downtown areas. The second area is our hills, you know, obviously between 2nd Street and 3rd Street, from the downtown business area out to the hospital or Meade Street. You have the Oak Street Hill, Baker Street Hill, a few of them up there in you know, Bloody 07 on 7th Street and Apricot and 11th Street. And then you have Riverview Drive or Riverwood Lane, and then 1st Street going to the south are kind of the priority areas because obviously hard to break when you're going downhill with that momentum. Then you have the arterial streets and then our secondary streets. So it kind of spells out in there the different ways that we salt. You know, our arterial streets, we just do mid-block and stop signs, not obviously right at the stop signs, but about 150 feet prior to the stop sign. Arterial streets are, sorry, that's what I just said. Secondary streets, we don't typically use salt on. We sand those intersections and things like that. We have dramatically increased our salt usage. When we first started, we were using about 23 to 2,500 tons or yards of salt, and we're down to between, obviously it all depends upon the winter time, but we're down to about 1,100 yards of salt right now, or sand right now, you know, so obviously that reflects in our sweeping in the spring of the year because we don't have as much material to clean and stuff like, or pick up. So we have that. So I don't believe there's, so again, we sand or salt with 4 sanders. We have 1 additional spare that's a tandem axle truck that goes out to plow occasionally also. Our alleys, I didn't have the attachment on there, but to, I believe that the alleys are attachment number 5. Oh, I'm gonna go back. Attachment number 4, I'm sorry. You can't read it obviously with this print, but that's just a breakdown of the different areas that we plow. Like I said earlier, if you have it digitally, you can actually see it. But each color is associated with a unit and things like that. And so that's the 9 different units that we send out and where they're responsible for and stuff like that. Attachment number 5 then, that's right behind that. Those are, so you have virtually attachment 5A and 5B. The one is a list of the west side alleys and the other one is a list of the east side alleys with a map on the back side of it. You know, we have a lot of alleys that are paved alleys and we have a lot of alleys that are still, or that are grass alleys, and we still have alleys that are gravel. We don't typically we don't plow the grass alleys in the wintertime because those are mostly just real limited access to the backs of the properties. The gravel alleys, now that we received a couple smaller snow events, we typically leave those and don't plow them right away, just to allow that, you know, if you go and plow it right away, all the gravel's gonna end up in somebody's backyard, you know, and so we go through and try to pack them down and things like that. We'll open up the ends, so that they can get in and out through the windrow very easily. But then obviously the paved alleys, we plow those right away because it's a hard surface and we're not gonna do any damage to it. We have in the, you know, between the, within the Public Works Department, we have 3 trucks that we can send out to plow alleys and parking lots. Typically it's just 2 because the amount of them, and you're kind of on a time schedule there because sometimes it pays to wait for the street to be plowed and then go and open up the alleyway. Sometimes, you know, you go there and plow the alley just so that people can get out. You know, the couple snowfalls that we've had where we've been 8 inches, 6 inches, we've gone and just opened them up so people can get in and out, and then go and clean up the ends afterwards or whatever, you know, so. So that's alley plowing. So then sidewalk plowing and shoveling, so that was one of the things before in the previous one, there was 2 items. So the city is responsible for, that is attachment number 6. Once again, there's a 6A and a 6B. The city is responsible for all the bike paths along the river, the bike paths along the expressway, Highway 54, along the expressway, pretty much from the river all the way out to the town of Grand Rapids. We have the bike trail that now goes along First Street North from Buren, pretty much all the way to the downtown area. And then we also have locations that are attachment number 8, that are areas that are around, city maintained property or kind of just vacant land that we put together 2 crews to shovel by hand.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is it all right if I interrupt them?
Go ahead.
Do that. I'm sorry. I
Just,
should have
you
said
said that you're responsible for the sidewalks and that bike path that goes all the way around. Is that like you're responsible by state law?
No, it's just
responsible?
city property, and I don't guess I can't tell you how that was incorporated, because that was done prior to us being
Yeah, is there,
here.
I mean, it's pretty long. So is there like a, in the winter months, is there a lot of use on it? And also is there,
Yeah, so our policy, kind of like our departmental policy, is that if it snows on Saturday, we plow that. And if it snows on Sunday, we don't call that work group in to plow those, just because then we can plow it on Monday on straight time rather than double time.
Yeah.
And when we don't plow, on Sunday, we have phone messages, a lot of like the expressway bridge, the Grand Avenue Bridge. People are using the river trail now that there's a trail on both sides. And it's like, hey, you guys didn't plow the trail. And it's like, yeah, and we do not. So in instance with the East Riverbank improvements, we do not plow the bike trail through Demetz Park. We plow from underneath the expressway bridge, and then that first sidewalk going up, we don't plow down around the exercise equipment, things like that. And then the same thing from like the old Burke Street, so the old Elks Club where all the ducks are always. We don't plow the trail that's along the river there. We plow the trail that's up on top of the walk, just because, there's been such a large increase of trail that, right now it takes us about 9 hours to plow with 2 pieces of equipment, all of the different bike trails and sidewalks that we have a responsibility for.
and then the other question was with these alleys, is that according to state law that alleys have to be plowed out? Alleyways?
I don't know that it's according to state law. I mean, we treat them as if they're no different than a street. A lot of them are access to they don't have garages to the street side, that the garages are on the back side. The ones that are paved, that's where the majority of the residents access their garages. I could look at, I don't know that all the person to me.
I would like to, I'd just like to know if that was something that would be the city's responsibility or the property owner that owns the rental or whatever it is.
It is a dedicated, in essence, it's a dedicated street.
Public right away.
Okay. Alright.
Paul,
Yes?
just a quick question. You guys do a phenomenal job, and I would not want your job ever. But one thing I know I always run into, because obviously, I walk at 4 a.m., 4:30 in the morning. But one thing I encounter a lot, and I don't know if it's any coordination, I don't know. But I mean, you guys are on it right away, like, I'm thinking, okay, the bridge between the courthouse and the River Park building, let's say. So, they do the sidewalk, they get that clear. And then the plow will, do a first thing, and then they'll come back through, and then it all ends up back on the sidewalk. And then it's like, it always seems like a day or two then that it takes to get off of that sidewalk. I know, I take complaints about that, and when I walk, I encounter that a lot as well. If there could be any, different coordination, I don't know how or whatever, that that if the plow driver's pushing it back on the sidewalk and it's been done, if they could go back over it right away. I don't know. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, you know, and that kind of goes back to the whole, you know, a lot of the discussion pieces that we have as a work group. You know, you go back and redo that where something has already been plowed once versus going back and plowing something that hasn't been done yet. You know, sometimes I agree with you that sometimes it is from like our sanders going through and trying to clean up the slush that's off there. Sometimes it's because, you know, on the Jackson Street Bridge, you have 2 lanes of traffic there. You have an inattentive driver because we try to keep it off of the sidewalk because we end up having to pick it up anyways. But sometimes it's an inattentive driver that simply hits that slush and throws it up onto the sidewalk. And so it's something that you don't necessarily have control of. But it's, you know, a lot of times we do not start the sidewalks until, you know, a normal snow event, you know, we try to get out on the roads by 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, you know, no later than 4:30. And so it takes us 3 hours to do all the highways in the downtown area. And then it typically takes you about 2.5 to 3 hours to do the arterial streets. So it's typically not until 9 o'clock in the morning that we start on our residential streets. So when we start at 3 o'clock in the morning, the sidewalk buggies really don't start until 6 because everything that they go and open up, you know, the crosswalks and things like that are just going to get filled back full by us plowing just the regular street, you know. And so we can try to make sure that we circle back in the high traffic areas, but like I say, it typically takes us, you know, sometimes we can cut it down because we can send a pickup truck out on a bike trail instead of the sidewalk tractor making 2 passes. Sometimes we just don't have the people to be able to do that, you know. And so unfortunately, we live in Wisconsin, and sometimes we can't take the sidewalks, and I don't say that lightly because there's people that use it quite frequently and rely on it, you know. But we do our best to keep them safe, you know.
Exactly. And then I just had another quick question for you. So, and I know, like I said, you guys do a phenomenal job with everything. And I know the city ordinance that, okay, it's supposed to be 4 inches. But I mean, I know most of the time you guys always go through, you know where I live, where, you know, you guys get it all done. But then other times, like tonight, like, you know, my street in front is, but Broadway isn't. So it's like, who determines that is it manpower, or how do you guys determine that it's all going to be done? Or like tonight, are you know, some of the plows went through earlier today. Are you guys all going back out tonight? You know, because I'll get calls and it's like, well, they plowed last time when there was 2 inches and now we have 3 inches and they're not plowing yet. You know, are they coming? Are they not? And it's, I mean, but everyone appreciates you. It's not that they're not. It's just, I think it's just they don't know what to expect, you know, whether they can park on the street or not, or.
Yeah, and so it's, I wish I could tell you that when it snows, we're gonna plow from this time to this time. But unfortunately, like in this case, you know, we had at 2 o'clock this morning, we only had 1 inch of snow. And at 5:15, we had 3 inches of snow. And so we were, you know, I was up at 4 o'clock and we started to call guys in at 4:15 and we were on the road by 5 o'clock. You know, and it's the same thing. It snowed until 3 o'clock this afternoon. And so our intent for this snowy fall, and like I said, I wish I had a cookie book answer for you to say each snowfall is going to be this way. And it's not. It's there. I bet you I can't. If we do 15 snow events every single year, we probably don't do it the same way 3 times, you know. And but so to your answer for this snow event, you know, it snowed until you know, we had people out on the road until 5:30. You know, we had 4 people that stayed after 3 o'clock, just maintaining the highways and the arterial streets. And we are coming back in at midnight tonight with 9 pieces of equipment, and we're going to touch up the highways because the wind is going to blow. And then we're going to get in and do the, you know, hopefully when people wake up tomorrow morning, their residential street will be done, you know, and the guys will be coming in and cleaning stuff up and then going home for the day or whatever mid-morning. So it's all weather dependent, you know. Myself and the 2 supervisors that I have, you know, we go through and come up with a game plan, and that game plan is fluid. You know, we started off this morning because the wind was supposed to blow, and we were just salting just at the intersections on the highways, and the wind really never picked up. So we're like, it's going to be 10 degrees tomorrow. Let's get rid of this stuff right now, and we changed our plan. You know, and so it's you got to evolve all the time. You know, with snow, and it stinks because sometimes you get it right and sometimes you get it wrong. You know, so.
Yep, and I appreciate that, and that's just what I basically wanted you to say, so everyone listening from home could hear that, because it's never the same. And like you said, you guys, you know, they're out early in the morning, and you guys do a great job. And that's what I wanted you to say that. So thank you.
Yep. Well, and we, you know, like I said, we attack it with as many pieces of equipment that we can to be most cost effective. You know, we used to take us about 10 to 11 hours to do the entire city, you know, on a 4 to 6 inch snow event, and we're down to about 8.5 to 9, closer to the 9 hours right now, just because of the new staff that we have in it. You know, I suspect that we'll get closer, you know, as the winter goes on and guys get more time in the pieces of equipment and figure everything out. You know, but it's a pretty stressful job, you know. I mean, as far as plowing snow, you got, most of them are anywhere from 20 feet to 24 feet of steel in front of them that they're pushing, you know. And we don't ever intentionally fill up people's driveways, you know, on purpose. Yes, it does happen sometimes, but it's not intentional. But it's like I said, a lot of different things going on that the person has to be responsible for, you know. So
Yep. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to say. Yep, thank you.
So then just back to the policy, you know, the city does have a snow blower that we mount on the front of the end loader. And so it is our practice when the snow banks get heavy, or if there's starting to be congestion in the on-street parking in downtown area, to try to keep traffic flowing. You know, if we get another snow event this week, it probably will be next week that we'll go through and start to pick up the snow in the on-street parking area. You know, and most of that is done in the evening hours now. We will try to get it done as quickly and efficiently as possible, and it is more efficient to do it at night. But we will run into the daytime sometimes, because the guys pulling out can pull it out quicker than what we can pick it up. It takes us about 15 seconds to load a quad axle dump truck with a snow blower, you know, and so and it can be even faster than that depending upon how big of the windrow is in front of us, you know. We don't typically remove it from the highways, but I say typically because, you know, I think it was 2018 was a pretty good winter. We ended up pulling it off of A Street because the snow banks got so high that you had a hard time seeing coming back out onto A Street and West Grand. A Street and West Grand are typically the only highways that we would pull it off of, or State Highway 73 now. The rest of the expressway and things like that, we can wing it back to create more space. We will wing it back onto the bike path, you know, like from 8th Street out to County Trunk W, and then take the snow blowers, either the one that's mounted on the loader or the two on the sidewalk tractor, and blow that back then, you know, so to make more space for us. Typically it is in March, you know, when things are starting to thaw. If it's been a good winter, we'll go through and remove the snow from crosswalks. Or if we've been getting a lot of snow and there's a lot of them that aren't done. But we kind of do those two things hand in hand, removing the snow from crosswalk areas, and then the radiuses of the intersections, because when stuff starts to melt, then we don't have the water back up. It has been in January a lot the last 3 or 4 years, because we've gotten that notorious rain event in the middle of winter that, you know, we got to go through and try to get rid of that water, you know, so. So that's just a part of the policy there. Typically, you know, we request that the residents, you know, open up the crosswalks if it's associated with their driveway or their sidewalk in front of their house. Sometimes people don't have that capability because we put a lot of snow there sometimes, you know. Same thing with the fire hydrants, the request is that people open up their own fire hydrants that are by them for the sake of the fire department if something bad happens. But that typically falls on Waterworks and Lighting Commission, since that's their asset that they maintain versus us. They will ask us to help them because obviously we have more loaders than they do, and more staff. So then, item number 10 in the policy, which is then attachment. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over. Also, when we pull out snow from the downtown areas, once that is completed, a lot of times we'll go to removing snow from around the churches and schools, because a lot of the churches are on street parking, and so it's hard to travel through. A lot of the schools, have athletic events and things like that for them, and so then the street ends up virtually where you can only have one lane of traffic through it, and so sometimes we try to plan that if we know that there's a no school day on a Thursday or Friday or something where we can do that during daytime hours. But otherwise we'll get those areas at night too.
So this is just the streets, not the actual property?
Correct.
Okay.
We would pull the snow off of the boulevard area between the sidewalk and the street. Okay. And then also find the old curb or the new curb or the curb line, just to create more there. Attachment 9 then, was the sand barrel location that I was looking for. This area here, or this attachment and this piece of the snow removal policy is something that we've been looking at for 2 years. As you can see, there's 4 pages of sand barrel locations. And so we created this Excel spreadsheet, and we, depending upon snow events and things like that, it may be once a month, it may be every other week that we would go out to check the sand barrels. And so we went through and identified locations that used to have sand barrels that really, when we would go and fill them throughout the year, wouldn't even be touched. So we would fill them in the, normally the first week after deer season, and go and pick them up in the spring of the year. And there was hardly, one pail of sand that was out of it. So the way, in my mind, we were kind of providing a service that wasn't needed anymore. So we went through and identified, so the ones that are highlighted are the locations that we still put sand barrels. A lot of those are by crossing guard locations and things like that. The other ones are ones that we're wishing, that we eliminated, I guess is the best way to say it. And Mayor Blazer thought that it would be good for you guys to approve it, whether we approve it tonight or in February when we digest the policy more, either way. But at the same time, then we used to just use half 55-gallon drums with wood tops on them. This year we went through and got like a locking plastic, not a locking, but a plastic cover that has it's not a latch, but it just overrides itself so they don't flip up and things like that, so water and snow can't get into them, and put those out there. It's our intent to work with the IT department and have them go, we'll go and actually graphically locate those, and then we'll put a link onto our Public Works website page. So, because obviously some people are used to, well, there was always a sand barrel there for the last 20 years, so now for them to be able to go and see where, it may not be at this intersection, but it's 2 blocks away because that's where there was one 2 blocks away, so, but like I say, if you guys don't feel that's appropriate, we'd be more than happy to go out and put out we still have the old barrels, we just, only upgraded 40 of them or whatever, so. So that's talking about the sand barrels. Like I said, a lot of this stuff was with the old style. We have 2 additional sanders now that we ever used to, and so back in the earlier years, the police department would actually go and sand an intersection prior to us getting there or whatever, and so now we're pretty quick at doing it. We're getting quicker at plowing, we're getting quicker at sanding. Same thing. I don't know that the sand barrels are as needed as they were in the past, you know, because now commercially there's more people are able to go to Ace Hardware and buy bag salt and use bag salt themselves because they don't want the sand to track up into their house, you know, from their sidewalk. So I think that's maybe part of the reason why the usage isn't as high as what it used to be, or whatever. So item 11 then is the borderline street agreement. That is attachment number 10. That's simply where if a lot of it is associated with the town of Grand Rapids, where we maybe have 500 feet of a city street, and then the rest of it is the town of Grand Rapids. 16th Street, for example. It's city street for 200 feet south of 2 Mile, and then for another 200 feet it's the town of Grand Rapids, and then there's 500 feet of city street along Rosewood subdivision there, and then it goes back to the town of Grand Rapids. Well, it'd be foolish for me to go and plow those segments.
Right.
So 20th Street is very similar. So we plow 20th Street, town of Grand Rapids plows 16th Street, so it's just, everybody ends up in the wash. 32nd Street from Washington to Chestnut, it's kind of the same thing. The west side of the road is in the city of Wisconsin Rapids along Renaissance property. The east side is in the town of Grand Rapids, so for the most part, town of Grand Rapids plows that. 28th Street from Washington to Saratoga, same thing, half the block is in the city, town of Grand Rapids plows that, but like I said, there's some of the streets that are more town of Grand Rapids that we plow because it's easier for us type thing, so that document there could probably be reviewed also. There really hasn't been a change on it, but it's something that was last looked at in 2016. So in the policy, it says that we'll look at it on, I believe it says annual basis, but there hasn't really been any changes, so it's just kind of continued. So,
Annual or as needed.
yeah. So then the special plowing arrangements, those are things that were set up, prior to probably 1984, a lot of them. That's where we plow snow, First Street South. There's no development along the airport property on the west side of the road. So that's a very wide street. Instead of taking half of it to the west and half of it to the east, we take 2/3 of it to the airport property and 1/3 towards the residents. It takes us 3 passes to do it anyway, so it really doesn't cost us anything extra. Certain other spaces where it's undeveloped property on the opposite side, we take, majority of it to the undeveloped property. The other part goes to the residents or whatever, so that's just kind of what the special plowing arrangements is, and that, like I said, is attachment number 11. The other thing that I, like I said, don't have in here, the counties are obviously responsible for maintaining the state highway system for the state, and the state of Wisconsin actually has a policy that dictates certain state highways require 18 hours of coverage. Other state highways require 24 hours of coverage. Right now, and I'm perfectly fine with this, just possible suggestion of putting something in policy that says that we would adopt the 18-hour of coverage, because a lot of times you're out there plowing a storm, and everything is closed, and so I would like to be done during the weekday, at 9 o'clock at night, because most of our high school athletic events are going to be done by 9:30, stuff at the pack or whatever. And so we would that way it gives us enough time to get our staff off the road so that they can get, 6 to 8 hours of rest prior to coming back in, a lot of the times by 4 o'clock in the morning. But like I say, the policy, obviously a lot of this says that it's up to my discretion, and I have no problem making that decision. But all of the state highways that come into the city are 18-hour highways, and so it would just simply reflect what the state is requiring the county to maintain. And so to me, it would be consistent with what the state is recommending, and it's just something that we would insert into this.
So I see that the last interim attorney had signed this, and kind of what I would like personally is to find out, as far as the alleyways go, from Sue, what her thoughts are on it. and it may be with, you know, if you're plowing a grass place or something like that, like the state does have a law for snow removal, and maybe, I don't know if it really has to be a part of the policy, but it could mention maybe more of the law. Like with the de-icing and snow removal, that the city has 10 days to clear all roadways of ice.
So would you want it to be included a repetition of the state statute or just identify the state statute?
Well, I think if it mentioned it, you know, in writing, I mean, it doesn't have to do the whole thing.
Right, but just if we
Just maybe
say,
parts of it here and there.
okay,
And then have Sue look over it, and if there's areas that we're doing that we don't need to do, I would, you know, she could make that decision based on state law.
And you're saying we're gonna go over this again next month?
Well,
I mean,
that's up to us.
it's up to
up
you.
to us.
Yeah, like I say, I understand that some of you didn't get it till tonight. I did email it on Monday. You know, and so it's totally up to you. If you're comfortable with what you see, you know, and want to act on it tonight, that's fine. If you want to digest it for a month, that's fine. I mean, this is virtually, it's just educating you guys on how we practice, you know, or how we operate.
Okay, but there was a couple of things that you stated
Yeah.
that you would want us to,
Yep.
and if you can go over those one at a time again?
Yep. And
And
so
that way we can,
you want to go over it again in February or right now?
I think now we
Okay.
just need to know those
You
things
had
you want
mentioned
us
the
to talk
couple of
about.
items that you had not put into the.
Yeah, and so item number one is mailboxes, how we should handle, to be consistent, how we handle replacement or damaged mailboxes. You know, and like I say, damage being when it's physically hit. You know, I can't control what slush does coming off the end of the plow. And a lot of times, honestly, it's a rotten 4x4 that simply, you look at it, would have fallen over, you know. We can still provide the
Yeah,
service,
I see what you're saying.
you know, and so, you know, if you had a real healthy 4x4 there, it wouldn't have broke, I guess is the best way
Right,
to say
right.
it, you know.
So it's kinda,
Yeah,
kinda
and
on
so-
them, but what do you do?
Right,
Yeah.
yep. And so how we wanna handle that, and maybe we don't even handle it, you know, obviously we are at fault if we hit it with the wing of the plow or a piece of equipment. And then the other thing is simply to add the, how the Wisconsin Department of Transportation handles it with the county, where, you know, we identify all of our state highway system as a, you know, it's gonna be maintained from 4 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. You know, I have to tell you that we go outside of that when it's done snowing. You know, like tonight, obviously, I'm gonna maintain the highways from midnight because that's when we're gonna start. So it's just saying that if it's a 2-day snow event, that, you know, we're gonna be out on the roads to maintain them for traveling purposes from 4 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, and then gives us time to get, so between 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night and 4 in the morning, there won't be any maintenance activity maintaining it, so people are traveling at will, I guess. You know, all the fire departments have our numbers. We now have, I believe the new ambulance is a 4-wheel drive ambulance, you know, so they can get to it, but if they need to, they'll call us, we'll get there and plow them in. You know, we've done it multiple times. And I can, like I say, if you don't want to act on those tonight, I'm fine with that. I can get you, I should have brought that information as to the Department of Transportation. We can add that in the future somehow too. Because right now it's my decision as to when we stop maintaining it and when, or the supervisors that are on call.
So the first one is the mailboxes, and right now we have nothing. But
Right.
you're saying most places have something, and
Yep.
you can say, we'll give you $50 to fix your mailbox, which isn't gonna do much for a mailbox, right?
Right.
Or we'll replace it and we'll have our
Yeah.
own little,
So our current practice
Standard.
right now is we try to replace it with what's ever in kind. You know, if somebody has a Rubbermaid mailbox that's over the top of a 4x4, most of the time the 4x4 is completely fine. You know, it's just the plastic part that's broke. So we'll go to Ace Hardware, we'll go to Home Depot, find it. It's typically a $59 mailbox or whatever, $45. Go through, take the old one off, put the new, put new stickers on, replace it for them. That's typically how we operate right
You
now.
just want it to be written, and that's what we do,
Yeah, we can simply say it's the city's policy to replace in kind. It's
replace in kind.
okay.
I like the both options because there's a lot of cheap people out there, like myself, that would, hey, you give me $100, I'll figure something out for $5.
It's up to 100.
Well, he first
But
mentioned
you're saying-
100.
You're saying.
I think I said 50.
Yeah, what if you got like an expensive mailbox?
We've had that.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've had that one that was $2,500. And I guarantee you, we spent more than $100 worth of
Yeah.
time to fix it.
Yeah.
But
still
but
saved
we were
$500.
we were at fault.
Yeah.
And so the other piece of it is now that we're trying to do on our construction projects. Technically, a mailbox is an unpermitted obstruction in the road right away. I mean,
It's funny though,
getting-
because
I'm getting technical,
Yeah,
right.
the post
You know,
office
but-
is kind of pushing people to put mailboxes up, right, and
Yep.
come off the houses. Interesting.
because they want to go to the driving route instead of the
Yeah,
walking route.
yeah, I get it.
And
But you're saying it's counterproductive to what the city would actually want. Not the,
to some extent.
yeah, okay. Anyways, so are we,
And like I said, I'm more
If
than happy
we're
to bring
already
it back.
practicing an in-kind replacement, I'm totally fine with putting that in writing.
Could we have the option of? here's-
in-kind replacement or,
Well, see, I think there's like, kind of what he is also getting at is if somebody's got a gold-plated mailbox that costs a ton of money and we accidentally hit it, I mean, there should be some sort of limit.
I was gonna say, you
to
could
it.
say an in-kind replacement not to
Oh,
exceed
not to exceed
$150 or $100,
Yeah.
or or $100 for you to fix it yourself.
Now we're up to 150. We're going
No,
the wrong way
I
here.
And like I said, some places are simply a wood post with a metal box on it.
right,
Yeah.
Get one of those basses, the big bass.
yeah. I mean, not kidding though, my neighbor like got so sick of his mailbox breaking, he went in his garage and built this stainless steel, like, stronger than a tank mailbox. And it got hit again, not by you guys, but by somebody else. Tipped the whole thing over, but didn't ding anything, just propped it back up again and he kept going. I wouldn't want to pay to replace that one though. So just going back, where did we end up? In kind or what?
Up to $100.
And if you want me to, I can do more research and bring it back to you in February. I'm perfectly okay with that.
I would say $100 mailbox would be probably.
All we should have to spend. I mean, if somebody wants to put extremely fancy mailbox,
Yeah, then
That's
they
the
can
other
take
thing,
they're
the.
taking the risk to put something like that.
Yeah, then they can
You know.
take the money, the $100, and then match it with whatever else they want to spend on it.
Yeah, it's still tricky though. If it is a 4x4 in a plastic box, they're making off pretty good. Because it would.
Well,
cost
I mean,
probably-
in kind or up to 100, right? So if they got a basic
Yeah.
metal fence post and a plastic mailbox,
Yeah.
By the time you replace it, have the worker go out there and do it, it's gonna. I don't think you could do it for less than 100.
right?
I'm going to, I'm on the Home Depot website right now, so just give me 1 second. I'm not texting.
Paul, do you think we should maybe just table it?
I'm okay with that, honestly,
Yeah.
if you guys feel.
That and you want to do the work on the other thing too?
Sure.
Let's table it.
That's
then.
fine.
We'll talk next one.
Chew on the mailbox replacement.
And can we run
Yeah.
this past Sue? She'll
For which part? Or all of it?
The alleyway.
the alleyways, and then also if she wants to put any more technical
Identify.
stuff in there.
Like I say, this was originally written in
1980.
80s, so a lot of it is just updating the, so here, a standard plastic mailbox at Home Depot is $60
Okay.
with the probably another $40 because the post probably isn't included in that. I
Right.
can't remember when I did mine.
Just to clarify, what are you talking about with the alleys? You don't want to plow the alleys?
Just saying if I would like her to look at what the state law says, and if it does have to do with like for plowing gravel, like if it does state in the state law, or grassy areas that is only used by those residents, if that,
We're currently not plowing grass. in
Correct.
alleys,
We,
right?
we are the alleys that we plow are the alleyways that are, like I say, the only access to their garage facilities. You know, it's not access to an alternate garage, it's access to their garages,
Which those are gravelled or
gravel
paved.
or paved.
Right.
Yep.
yeah. I'd just like her to
Yep.
look at it.
Nope.
Sure.
I will do my best to get her to have that done in February, so. And like I say, anytime there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to us or whatever, and we'll do our best to get back to you as quick as we can, so.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, moving on, item number 8, review the referral list. Joe, you wanna touch on it?
Yeah, so, looks like items 5, 11, and 12. Looks like we covered those.
Yep.
So we could pull those out.
Yep.
And then, they added the Lincoln Street parking item for next month, along with the snow removal.
Okay.
Ordinance and policy discussion.
Are there any referrals?
I just have a question. He gave us this, or you also got this to us early, we're able to review it. Is there any way to speed up the whole meeting process where, like, you send us the de-icing policy, we can read through it, and if we have questions, just ask questions instead of sitting here and reading through this? Like, if we would've read through each one of these ordinances tonight, we'd be here till,
So, in the morning hours, for
Yes.
sure. So, yeah, I mean, anything we can do to expedite any of the packet information, I suppose would be appreciated as well.
Sure.
So, maybe get some of the packet info in with the agenda when we send it along, so,
Certainly.
okay.
Well, and sometimes you could almost, I mean, if you're sending it out, you could almost put it on the, if it's not time sensitive, you could get, you know, we could talk about it the following month if it gives us time to read over something so extensive.
Sure.
I'm amazed, you know, I know you guys had time to do it. Again, I know it was said with Patrick, you really jumped in there to kind of wrap your mind around everything that was happening way more than I did, so.
but it's
Maybe that's a
posted
possibility.
publicly online, so everybody can read it if they have, you know, if they want to.
Right.
So I don't think there's any reason that we have to go through even your reports that you have. I would think that would be, I mean, I don't mind sitting here listening to you for an hour, but
Right, I mean, I think there's values to hearing the reports, and maybe some high level highlights and things like that, you know, but maybe not line for line, sure.
Well, and that's, I guess that would be my question for you is that you and maybe Shane or Mayor Blazer has something different. You know, if it's simply the item that I have is for, you know, going through our report, you know, do you even want me here? I mean, if it's something that I can add value to about Joe, then obviously, you know,
I think for the time being, just with the transition that we're going through,
that's fine. Totally,
Yeah, I
we'd
would
like to have you around.
yeah.
Yeah,
but we can make it shorter too, like we don't
Yeah.
have to be here till
Right.
8 o'clock at night.
right.
Well, and I will request that if I do have something, if I could pop, because if it's gonna be on Tuesday nights, I got two daughters that are playing high school ball, so if I could be on the front end of it or whatever,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
But I also understand it's part of what I gotta
Sure.
do, so.
So speaking of next meeting, typically, I think Public Works committees have been this first Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that something we want to continue with? I know I spoke with Jennifer, we could potentially come in earlier on a Tuesday, or we could go Thursdays pretty much any time. So I guess throw that out to you guys. What do you prefer?
Joe, What- how
My
long-
schedule's open.
when do you work until? Like, do you work
Whenever
here and
we
then
get
go
the-
home and then come back for
It
the
de-
meeting?
It depends on the day.
I mean, if we did it, like, what do you think? I'm fine with
Well, it sounds like-
4
I mean,
Well, Tuesdays at what, 4:30 is finance, I believe.
We don't have a home. I can tell you what the discussion has to be is moving municipal court.
Yeah.
That would free up the council chambers for, if they would just push their schedule back a week, it would free us up for that, especially for that. I mean, this worked out good tonight, but there's a lot of demand for that room right now. And
Definitely.
So we don't, and to answer your question, we don't have a set night. We look for an opening.
Okay, okay. So
again, I.
earlier, or keep the same time on Tuesdays, or
And what would
Thursday,
work best
anytime.
for you,
That's what
Paul?
I'm saying, Paul, what's,
What-
said Tuesdays is pretty busy.
Yeah, I mean, it's the season right now. I mean, it's basketball.
Is
But
Thursdays also busy, or?
No, Thursdays we seldom have games, you know, and so,
So it takes some pressure off.
yeah.
At what time
And-
are we talking, like?
Well,
Whatever
if it's
works.
wide open.
5 works, for me.
4
just
to 5 would
4:30 to 4:30. I can come straight and probably be a little late at 4:30, but 5 o'clock's better. But if you want to get going at 4:30, I'm fine with that.
Why don't we do Thursdays at 5? Does that work for everyone? Okay, so that would be, what do we got here?
The February 3rd?
February 3rd? Yep.
And I think we can cover more stuff too if we're not going through everything, reading it.
Right.
So.
No, and I'll do better too, you know.
Oh, no,
it's
you're-
just,
Yeah, it's not.
The
that-
predecessor that was here before you, he would still be talking for now.
No, but I mean, as far as getting you guys stuff ahead of time, I just was on vacation for that week and a half when, so.
Okay.
I think everything was good. Thank you both for your information.
Okay, so item number, what was it? 9. Adjournment,
I'll make a motion.
Your
to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn. You got a motion?
Second.
Second by Delaney, all in favor, respond with aye.
Can't believe you
Have a
want me
good
to
evening,
shovel my
everyone.
alley.